Hi, everyone. Welcome to another insightful edition of the Anoki Uncensored Show. I'm your host, Girn, the founder of the umbrella brand Anoki, and I'm pleased to be continuing our 20th anniversary celebrations for Anoki by showcasing our valued sponsors and partners. Today's show is dedicated to one of them, ALOE Accounting and Tax Professional Corporation, and it's going to be a great, insightful conversation with its founder, KHUSHPREET SRAN, who is a chartered professional accountant. Welcome to the show, KHUSHPREET. We have so much to talk about.
Thank you so much, Raj. I'm actually super excited to be here and continuing the celebrations of Anoki's 20th anniversary.
Absolutely. And just, I was just so absolutely excited to have you come on board and in the perfect fireside chat during the Anoki Emerald Brunch, we were talking to two stalwart professionals in the, business arena, two women who are really strong leaders. And I couldn't think of a better alignment for you and your company. So let's bring everyone watching, listening, and reading this up to speed a little bit on your history. Can we start by giving everyone a background on your journey before you founded ALOE Accounting, so we get some kind of context on who you are and kind of, what your value system is?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I actually, believe it or not, I wanted to be a CPA back when I was in grade 2. Now I know you're like, no grade 2 knows what a CPA is, but I remember, doing like an assignment in grade 2 about what you want to be when you grow up. And of course, I kind of put in teacher and I think I said firefighter, but
I love that.
I can't say I was truly into it, but I just needed something to complete that assignment. And then I remember showing it to my dad, and then he goes, there's something called, at that time it was called a CA, a chartered accountant. And he's like, why don't you do that? Now, of course, as a second grader, I wouldn't know what that is.
Yes.
He explained it to me very briefly. And I remember at that time he was doing his accounting courses in college. So he had a textbook. And, he did tell me that, accountants make good money, you want security, you want stability. So yeah. I went and I actually, picked up the textbook. And the first sentence was assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity, which is like the fundamental accounting formula. This is all you need to know to kind of go forth in accounting. And in my head, I'm like, wow, I can make millions of dollars. And all I have to know is this one formula. Like, this is great. Now, of course, obviously, as I went on, I realized that's not all it is. But I think in schooling, I did do well in math, so it made sense for me to do that. I went for Laurier for the Bachelor of Business Administration. I did co-op in accounting. I think I was just so focused and driven to be an accountant that I never really had an opportunity to even look elsewhere. And I'm honestly okay with that because I really do generally enjoy it, which I know doesn't sound like it's normal to some people, but and the numbers make sense to me. I think it's exciting being able to help people because there are some people who actually aren't that strong with numbers. So
a lot of us like me, it was the one subject I failed consistently year after year when I was in school.
Well, I mean, it's not for everyone, but that doesn't mean you don't have other talents, right? Of course. I mean, in the creative aspect, I think I would definitely be the weaker one and you'd be like much, much stronger than me.
So together we are a magic formula, right?
Exactly. We're that magic formula that can help it, make millions. So,
absolutely.
That was my journey pretty much before. And I did work at another accounting firm for about 5 years. That's where I got my experience. It was a wonderful place to work. They were very supportive. And, eventually I think I also just kind of wanted to be my own boss. I think, it's something I've seen my dad do. And I wanted to kind of embody that as well. That, now, of course, I'm my own boss, but that doesn't mean I act like, I'm everything and anything. I still have the rules I play by. I still have a schedule I go by. And so it was basically, I wanted stability, security, and I wanted to ultimately be my own boss. And then that's how I kind of went into, let's start our own accounting firm.
Right. When you were experiencing the 5 years at a different accounting firm, can you share a little bit about the areas of accounting that you found to be, you know, most fulfilling for you? Because, you know, accounting is such a vast arena.
Yeah.
And there's so many different types of accountants out there, all of whom know the A to Z of the entire accounting world, but specialize in certain arenas. I'd love your kind of thoughts around that. And then I want to deep dive ALOE.
Okay. So my background is more so with audits, so financial audits, which means I'm not really doing any of the day-to-day bookkeeping, but I worked in public accounting, which means that if, let's say, there's various industries, various companies, you know, the bank or any other body that requires them to get a financial statement audit, means we're looking at their numbers in detail. We're asking for support. We're verifying, you know, every kind of nitpicky thing. And it's not like a forensic audit. Like, we're not trying to, you know, discover fraud. We're just trying to make sure these numbers are correct, essentially. And but there's so much involved. Like, we're not just looking at numbers. We're doing inventory counts. So I am out there in the snow trying to count rolls of carpets. Like, you know, it's very intense in that sense, that it's not just numbers. You're looking at the back end, how their IT works, how their systems work. And I think I found that very interesting because every industry is so unique, and you don't really realize how these industries work when you're on the front-facing or customer-facing side. But then when you're behind the scenes, you see how much work goes into it. And I think I've always found that interesting. And then I did switch over afterwards to kind of focus more on the bookkeeping side and more of the day-to-day, which obviously has its own perks. It's a little less intense. So, you know, you're able to look at more details. You're able to help smaller businesses kind of, I guess, streamline or systemize what they have in their books.
Absolutely. And you know, the thing I find so fascinating about the world of accounting, because as a business owner, you know, there's so many things that I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Is the fact that you guys you can find the loopholes. That no matter how complicated I've experienced this so many times, the numbers don't lie. Right. And there is a skill associated with actually seeing the things that people like me, who are just, you know, entrepreneurs doing my thing, can't see. I find that so fascinating.
Yeah, I think it is about, you know, really understanding. Like, I'll just give you an example, right? Like,
Yes.
for example, we'll have someone there, they get a deposit from a client, right? Let's say it's $100,000. Someone who's not too familiar with accounting might just shove all that into income. But have you actually done the service? No, you haven't. So you can't actually treat that as income. In the accounting world, that's not income because you haven't actually provided the service. So you might think, oh, I've earned 100,000, but like, we as an accountant know you actually haven't earned that 100,000 yet.
Oh my gosh, the little things like that.
Little things like that, yeah.
You're absolutely right. But these are little big things, right?
They can definitely amount up to a lot. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. At what point were you sure and you knew I'm ready to start my own firm, knowing that that's always been your goal?
So actually, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I actually kept delaying it. I think I just, like, the thought of going out on my own made me very nervous, right? Also just, like, as a woman, I guess, in general, I also felt kind of the pushback that, you know, I'm not a man, so maybe other, you know, men might not want to come to me. They might want to go to someone who's also a man, right? He knows more. So, I was always kind of set back by that. I always thought, you know, maybe when I know, I'll wait a year, maybe when I learn more, then I can go up on my own. But like you said, accounting, tax, it's so vast, you can never know everything.
Right.
There's always new rules coming. There's always changes in the audit world and the accounting world and the tax world. You will never know everything. So I was very blessed to have the support of my family and friends. And that's when I finally decided, you know what, actually, I'm just going to keep delaying it and delaying it. I have my own processes that I really like, that I know I can do like better than other accounting firms. Why not go out and implement them?
I love that confidence.
Yeah. And I think it was, I hope I don't get in trouble with Nike for saying this, but it was literally just do it. You know, like, you need to just do it.
And who cares what people think, KHUSHPREET? You know what you know, and that's just and all you can do in life is go with that. So I'm so happy that you took that leap forward. You started ALOE. I want to start actually because I'm very curious. The name. Share a little bit about how you came up with the name.
Okay,
ALOE.
so I'm really glad you asked me that. I have a lot of people ask me that. They think I have a very strong passion for the plant aloe. Mind you, it's great for your skin. It's great for your skin, but it's actually a like an acronym. So ALOE is actually the accounting formula, which is assets equals liability plus owner's equity, which is what kind of started this whole thing, that formula from that textbook.
What a full circle moment right there.
Pretty much, yeah. I will have to say, my little brother did tell me, he's like, make sure you say it. He was the one who helped me come up with that, because it's pretty like there's a kind of like a steps you have to follow. So with CPA Ontario, you actually have to get your name approved. And I don't recall the first name I had submitted, but it did get rejected for some reason. And then I was like, okay, let me, think of more options. And that's when I came up with ALOE with my little brother.
Well, I love that. Props to your little brother. And, I'm a firm believer in, things happen for a reason. Yeah. This full circle moment, the formula had to be a part of your name. Like, yeah. I feel that it was already preordained that this is what it was meant to be, which is why the first one was rejected. Yeah. I want to kind of, because you started quite recently, even though you've been, doing this since you were in grade 2, essentially speaking, mentally, right? Can you share just the service suite that ALOE offers? Like, let's talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people actually never know, the difference between one accounting firm and another. And that is a part of another question I'm going to ask you. But let's start by sharing the service suite that ALOE offers. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So it's definitely a range of services. So of course we have, your basic bookkeeping, accounting. So everything where you just give us the statements, the receipts, we handle all of that for you. And then also there's the kind of the more consulting side. So let's say you kind of have your historical numbers ready, but you want to kind of help see in the future. So we help with performance statements and, financials, budgeting, all of that. And then of course, from the tax side, preparing your GST returns, corporate tax returns, personal trust. We also do partnership returns. And I'm going further. Now, I am a licensed public accountant, which means that if you need to do like an audited financial statement or a review engagement that, sometimes banks requires, government requires, then we are licensed to do that as well. Okay. And then it's just sort of different services along that. So I've had some clients who kind of want to do something very specific, like they need a review engagement, but it's not for the full financial statement. It might be for a specific plan or a specific project. And we offer that as well.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So at what point do you feel that a person needs an accountant? I feel like this seems like it's a obvious answer, but a lot of people don't get an accountant because they think they can do their own. Talk to me a little bit about this, because I feel that this is also a really important thing for people to know. At what point? I
think, I guess it depends. Like, of course, there's going to be some people where they have all that kind of financial knowledge, they just don't have the time, right? So then it's like instead of, focusing on the numbers, like you could be out there doing your marketing, your operations, getting new deals. So leave the kind of the back end to us, right? Now, with some people, they think, I even get clients during tax season where, I filed my return myself. It's the same every year. It's very simple. But then when I look at it, it's not as simple as it looks, right? There's a lot of issues and we got to go back. And sometimes it takes more time and more effort and even more money to have to go back and correct things than just have it done right the first time around. But I think that point kind of varies for everyone. But the way I see it is you want to set the processes right the first time around, then have to go back and clean it because that will always take a lot more time. And eventually money as well, right? So.
Absolutely. So let's give people some information about how to get a hold of ALOE. What's your website? What do people need to know?
Yeah, so my website is just aloeaccountingandtax.com. You can also just email me. I guess I can give you my email as well, but it's KSRAN, so KSRAN at aloecpa.com. I'm always accessible by email, always accessible by phone. My phone number is just 647-631-9700. But again, like I'm always available to pick up, or even if, let's say, I don't pick up the phone, I will always call back. There's no issues there.
Absolutely. And there is a contact page on your website. So, you know, people can just slot in their information on the form. I know that you also offer free estimates, etc. as well. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I do like free 30-minute consultations. The reason for that is because sometimes I have people come to me where they're like, I want to open up a company, and then I do a 30-minute consultation, and you don't even need to incorporate, right? So it's I guess it's just kind of helping people out make the right decisions. I'm not gonna charge you where essentially nothing really needs to be done, right? So it's kind of to kind of give you an idea of what the work would be that I would need to do, and then to provide you kind of an accurate quote, right? Sometimes I'll admit at the end of a 30-minute consultation, we don't have enough information, and I might say, just give me some stuff back, and then I'll get back to a more accurate quote. But the purpose of the 30-minute consultation is always just to get a quick synopsis of what it is, services that you're looking for, how I can help, how I can make it easier for you, and then ultimately the quote or the range that we're looking for.
I love that, guys. You're hearing it right here. You got nothing to lose. Go get that information found out. And a lot of people also who have a side hustle, right? Who do, and many of us do, right? Many of us have other things going on, and it gets complicated, especially if, you work, for someone else, and then you also have a side hustle. There are so many things to consider, in all of that. Go get that free 30-minute consultation with KHUSHPREET. Again, the website where they can go and sign up for that KHUSHPREET. Let's give it to them one more time.
Yeah, so the website is aloeaccountingandtax.com.
Brilliant. I want to take a few moments, KHUSHPREET, just to chat a bit about what accounting actually even is, because being proficient on some level is absolutely essential for everyone to manage their finances, but something we aren't taught as a mandatory topic when we're in the school system. Can you share some help in breaking some of the fundamentals down? What is accounting?
So accounting is essentially you're recording all your transactions, and then you're trying to actually compile it in a way where the numbers make sense to you, right? As a management, as business owner, you're going to take that information and you're going to determine kind of where to go from there, right? So it's I guess the actual reporting of the transaction is just bookkeeping. That's simple, right? Essentially, everyone can do that. But it's I think a lot of people actually also seem to forget that accounting isn't just your income statement. It's not just your income and your expenses. You also have to look at what we call the balance sheet, which a lot of people will forget about, which is what the company actually has and what it owes other people. Because you might say, oh, I made $100 million, that's a really large number. Let's go with 100,000. I made $100,000 this year. That's great. But I don't see any money. Why? But then they forget that they have this liability section where maybe 50% or 30% of their income, or their, I guess, cash income, went to paying those liabilities. And I think it's very important that, when you're accounting, you're looking at every aspect and not just income and expenses, because that's what I find a lot of clients will come and tell me, like, oh, I already did all the work. I did the income statement, right? The income and expenses. But then when you file with CRA, this balance sheet is required, right? When you go to the bank, they won't just ask for income expenses, they want a balance sheet as well.
Right.
So it's really knowing that every, I guess, in and out has a place in your financial statement, but is it the right place? For example, that customer deposit I was talking about, it's not actually revenue. It's just sitting on your balance sheet as a liability until you perform the service.
Oh my God, what a great way to look at that. You've just opened my eyes in terms of how I should be looking at revenue that comes in. That's such a fundamental point. I don't really have that revenue yet because I haven't provided the service.
Yes, yeah.
That's like an aha moment right there for me, because I've never looked at it in that way. kind of leads me to ask you another question, KHUSHPREET. A lot of people don't pre-plan their financial future.
Yeah.
And let's stay in the business realm for a minute. You know, people will, oh, you know, I have this service, I got money coming in, I'm paying my bills, etc. But they don't really have a goal, a plan. Can we talk a little bit about how crucial it is to pre-plan the financial accounting of, you know, what you want to accomplish over a certain period of time? Talk to me a little bit about that, because like you said a couple of answers ago, it's so much easier to do it before you start than to try and fix the problem after it's happened.
Exactly.
So can you talk a little bit about how fundamentally important it is to actually do the pre-planning? And what is that pre-planning for a business? Let's go there first.
Okay, so well, pre-planning is essentially you're going to be creating some sort of budget, right? Now, of course, like if you're a brand new business, you know, yes, of course, you won't know your income too much, but you have an idea, right? Whether it's a service you're providing or a product you're selling, you know, okay, it sells for this much, or this service I provide for this much. You know, you have some sort of expectation. I expect to sell a certain amount of inventory, right? Now, expenses are a little easier in the sense that you know you're going to have to pay a phone bill or rent or, you know, computer expenses. So they're a little easier, right? You actually incur all your expenses before you earn any income, especially as a new business. Right? And even if you're an existing business, you have an idea of, you know, this year I made this much. I want to grow. We're expanding. We're going to new locations. So we're definitely going to see increase in income, but you're also going to see an increase in some of the expenses. Maybe your phone bill might not change, but you know the cost of these certain goods might change, right? You're buying more or less quantity, and also like salaries, right? You're maybe hiring more people. So it's always good to kind of look ahead, and then I don't mean just like 1 month. I'm talking like minimum a year, right? Kind of where you see the trajectory of your business going. But it's just about budgeting. A lot of clients, what we do is we'll look at kind of like the preliminary numbers, the historical numbers, and then we'll add like a percentage. Like, you know, okay, eventually you're going to pay your employees more. So maybe we're going to add 5% down the road or whatever it may be, right? Rent, you know, beforehand, okay, my landlord is going to charge me more. There's no point in thinking, oh, let's just use the old numbers. You got to update your numbers accordingly.
Yeah. And you're recommending that you do that once a year?
I would say once a year is a good plan. Of course, if you're growing really fast, then you might have to look at it in a quarterly session rather than annual. Yeah.
Right. Oh my God, this is just all such information
everybody
needs.
Your mind too much.
No, I love it. I love this stuff because there is no lying with numbers. There is no faking numbers. Their numbers are what they are. The data is what it is, right? And that's the big thing. Why? And oftentimes the problem isn't you seeing the numbers as a business owner.
Yeah,
absolutely. And this is where you need the consultative arm of an accountant. I want to ask you this question. In many households, especially amongst cultures like ours, there usually is one family member who manages the finances, and it generally tends to be the male.
Yes.
Obviously, a lot of that is changing as the generations are going on, but this is typically very common in strong cultures. Not just ours, but a lot of them, the Italians, and can you talk a little bit about why it's important that every member of the family knows the basics of accounting? Can we talk a little bit about that? I want everyone watching, listening, or reading this to understand that there is a certain level of accounting IQ, financial IQ that is necessary, whether you are directly or indirectly involved in the money part of your household.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think so you're right. Even in my household, my dad is the one that kind of carries and deals with all the finances. I mean, I'll admit my mom is okay with that, so it's fine for her. But I think, yes, like you mentioned, it is very important that everyone has at least a basic understanding. There's a few reasons for that. I mean, one of them obviously could be you don't know which way life is going to go, so you need kind of have that background and be able to understand. Let's say knock on wood, but someone passes away, you're kind of left as the woman to kind of deal with everything. You know, you want to make sure you're not taken advantage of, right? When you're dealing with these numbers. And it could be that, you know, your spouse or whoever has a really good business and you don't want to just sell it, right? Or if you are selling it, you want to make sure you're not selling it for less than it's worth.
Right.
And even if you want to continue it, you need to know, is it viable? Is it, you know, worth continuing the business? And then just like, you know, I think I would also just say security, stability. It's very important to know that, you know, every number that you are dealing with actually plays some sort of role. And it's not just money in, money out, because it could be money in, but, you know, where is it actually income, or are you just holding on to this to eventually pay off some sort of liability?
You know, and also this happens so much more in our community, in the South Asian community now, divorce.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
That's a big one, yeah.
And that one comes with, you know, a lot of kind of emotional challenges because both sides are parting ways and it's not always amicable. So if, you know, the understanding of the money situation within the family household is only one-sided, then this becomes very challenging. But I want to say this because I've seen this a lot. It's always good for the woman in that case to hire an accountant immediately to figure this out and make sure that they're not just listening to the story on the other side. Would you agree with me on that? And have you experienced that, KHUSHPREET?
I will admit I haven't experienced it at this point, but no, I do agree. So I guess I'm talking more from the law perspective as well, but, you know, anyone can just say, oh, I only have X, Y, Z assets, right? But if you know, okay, you know, these are the amount of mortgages being paid out, there has to be another asset there.
Yeah.
Right. So if you look through a bank statement and, you know, maybe with an accountant, you can see that, you know, at the end of the day, these numbers don't add up. There has to be another asset out there. There has to be another vehicle or another house that maybe this person isn't trying to actually show you, or it's, you know, it's under someone else's name, but it's being paid for by this individual. Right.
Yeah. And people, that's the other thing, right? When things aren't under your name, doesn't mean that you don't have some rightful ownership to that. So then, you know, the accountant, and this is the other thing, accountants and lawyers work so well together on so many levels, be that on a personal financial level or be it on a professional. So I do feel that is also a lot of people, they keep their legal separate and their accounting separate. I, you know, want to say from own personal experience, make sure that they both know each other, make sure that they both are very sure of what's happening with their client and how each of them fit into the mix. Would you agree with that, KHUSHPREET? Because I've experienced that when I keep them separate, oftentimes it gets really complicated. Nobody really knows what's going on. Talk to me if you've experienced any of that.
So my dad is actually a lawyer. So you know, we hear some like kind of horror stories, but I think, no, I definitely agree because, you know, as a lawyer, you're going to see maybe divorces and et cetera, the breakup of the assets. But then as an accountant, if you don't know what's going on, like, let's say you're couple, you're thinking of, you know, divorcing, so you're separated, right? Now the tax implications for when you're separated versus married are different. So when I go to do the tax return and you're like, you know what, we're not going to tell her, she's just the accountant, who cares? I might just go ahead and file your return as married still.
Yeah.
Right? And then there might be issues because now, you know, I filed the tax return as married, but you're telling the lawyers you're separated and there's a disconnected information there. So there's a lot of kind of legal and tax issues, you know, and that's why I think you're right. Lawyers and accountants should definitely be, you know, intertwined. And when you tell them the information, it's consistent for both.
Absolutely. And it costs less money.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because again, it comes back to what you said earlier. Let's not have to retroactively fix a problem. Let's try and forecast what some of the things may look like. And you can't forecast everything in life. You can't forecast a divorce. Yeah. But if you've got your ducks in a row and all sides of the family know what's going on, it does make for a much more fair future forecast of how everything is going to be divvied up. So with that in mind, KHUSHPREET, what are the basics of accounting you feel every single human needs to know? Give, what are 2 or 3 basics that, it seems obvious, but it isn't.
So I think what would be important would definitely be the understanding the balance sheet. Right?
Yeah.
So assets and liabilities. So many clients of mine miss that. And they'll feel like I've done everything, and it's no, you haven't, pretty much. So just knowing the balance sheet. I would say maybe understand that every transaction has a debit side and a credit side. Right. So sometimes you need to understand, okay, cash in is a debit, or in accounting terms, but then on credit side, it could either be a liability or a revenue item. It depends on what's been done. Same with expenses. You might say, oh, I'm just going to give this supplier, $200, but I'm not going to get the stuff until next year. That's actually not an expense. That's supposed to be a prepaid item, which is on your balance sheet, again, not on your income statement.
See, these are the things. This is why we hire accountants. I had no idea what you just said there, but now, now I know. I love it. Yeah. Oh my God. I love to learn things I don't know, especially when it's going to empower me, So I love that we have you on the show. I love that we get to talk about, some fundamentals that I'm sure a lot of people out there also don't know. I want to ask you this. What would you say are characteristics of a healthy financial understanding? Because many of us don't know what that checklist is. And does it differ personal to business? I kind of feel that's a 2-part question.
Okay, so first, let's go with the characteristics first. It was like a characteristics of a financially healthy person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like what would that checklist look like?
So I think it's I think the biggest thing is being able to live within your means. And I think COVID was the biggest kind of thing that, taught everyone that lesson, right? You need to have savings of at least 6 months, right? Or whatever the case is. I mean, of course, if you're living with your family, maybe you don't need 6 months savings, right? Whatever your situation is, but I would say minimum 3 to 6 months of savings.
Okay.
You also want to think with a more investing mindset, right? So every money in doesn't mean you have to spend every penny on, whatever, maybe some of the personal item. It's always, you want to save, you want to invest, and then the rest, you use it for required bills. And then if there is anything left over, you leave that for yourself. And I think, I'm guilty of it myself, but sometimes where it's, you get the money, you're like, oh, I really want to buy this. Let me go get that. But it's like, maybe actually sleeping on what it is that you want to buy and think, do you really need it? I'm trying to make sure I don't use the wrong word, but, you don't want to be frugal, but you also want to make sure that, you're not overspending, right? You can say no to your friends if you don't want to go to that really expensive restaurant, 5 nights in a row, whatever it may be.
Oh my God, who does that? Oh, that scares me.
I know.
But people they spend a fortune on, that's a big one. People spend a fortune on the labels that they want, and they spend a fortune on, recreational stuff like eating out all the time. And they don't realize how much money they actually end up spending just on things like that. Just easy things like that, if they were to pre-budget them, which a lot of people still aren't doing. I have to say, I used to be that person. Now I look at it and I'm like, okay, I'm only going to go out as much as I can fit into this budget this month.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's how lots of people get in trouble. And credit, that's the other problem. Right? People don't know how to use credit. Can we talk about that as an accountant, where you probably see this a lot, where credit is being used a lot? And let's talk about it maybe on a personal level as opposed to business, because in business oftentimes you have to get a lot on credit in order to operate, and that's a whole other discussion. On a personal level, we used far too much credit. The statistics in North America, we rely completely on credit. How can we have a healthier relationship between the money we have and the money we're borrowing?
So I think now one thing that I've personally done, and it's so funny because every time I go to the bank, they tell me, "Oh, you're eligible for, you know, a credit hike of this much," and I always tell them like, "Thank you, but no, thank you." I think the biggest thing for me is just setting a very low credit limit because it does limit you, you know, kind of stop you from overspending, right? So just for example's sake, but if I have, you know, a 2,000 versus 5,000 credit card, I'm always gonna go up to the max. Like you know what I mean? Like I'm always gonna hit that 2K or the 5K. But hitting 2K and repaying 2K is a lot easier than, you know, hitting 5,000 and having to repay that.
Yeah.
And then I think it's just like I'm the kind of person who does not like to borrow. You know, as soon as I owe a friend money, like I'm constantly thinking about it. And I think that's how I treat my credit card too. It's, you know, I borrowed money from a friend, right? Now, of course, it's unlike a friend, credit card's going to charge me interest, and these interest rates are not nice at all. So it's kind of on the back of my mind. The first thing I got to do is pay that back because I'm not trying to incur all that interest, because that's just an added expense you didn't need in the first place. And just setting boundaries. And I think nowadays, like almost every banking app or credit card app will show you, oh, you spent this much on entertainment, this much on meals. And I think that really helps you see, okay, you know, I need to maybe pull back. Like, did I really need to go to the movies 3 nights in a week or whatever it may be? But constantly looking at those apps and, you know, using those alerts, they even allow you to set your own alerts, right? Like I don't want to spend
love that.
50. Yeah. So using kind of all those little features to make sure that you're not behind. And then of course, making the minimum payments, you know, even if it's just 10 or like $100 a month, like whatever it may be, just making sure you're making those payments so you can see the numbers going down.
Yeah.
Because that, like, I think just seeing that physically go down, it kind of motivates you that, okay, I can do this. I can get rid of this debt.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I want to ask you something that I feel is really, really important. And something I feel a lot of us don't get right. And this is this whole idea behind retirement planning and, you know, doing it sooner rather than later. A lot of us kind of think to ourselves, okay, when I hit my 40s, when I hit my 50s, I know that I've have X amount of years left to work. So let me start planning for retirement now. Talk to me as an accountant. What would you say to people?
Okay, so the way I like to see this, you know, I'm pretty sure everyone kind of knows this. You have to work backwards, right? Like, you know, okay, I'm not really, or I spend a lot, or whether I don't spend a lot, I know I'm going to need about this much money at retirement to live comfortably, right? Now, of course, you do have pensions, and if you're part of, you know, a lot of these insurance companies or banks, they offer all these plans for retirement where you kind of start putting in the money now. But I think that's what you got to keep in mind and know that it's very important. You got to put in the money now. There's many reasons for it. One, of course, is if you start doing it now, you can do very little and it's gonna eventually catch up. Versus if you're doing it and starting it later, you're gonna have to put, you know, bigger chunks of your paycheck, whatever it may be, to get to that same value. Another reason I usually tell people do it at a younger age is simply because you're going to be healthier, right? So you're going to get like the lower premiums, lower rates. When you're a little older, you know, God forbid you have a few more health issues, those premiums go way up, right? Or you get way less. But you want to start planning that right now, and you want to work backwards. And you also have to keep in mind time value of money. So $100 today is not going to be the same $100 like 20, 50 years from now, wherever it may be. So you have to really understand that, you know, because you're working backwards, you can't put in $100 now and expect to still get the same value for that $100. You might have to put $200 now, and then you'll get that same $100. So start sooner rather than later is always what I'm going to say to everyone. Yeah.
So literally, as soon as you start working, you should be very, very conscious of what's happening with that money. And maybe, you know, a little portion of that would be put aside. Maybe you have a savings account that is for your retirement. Maybe you start, you know, going into different government assisted programs that are out there for retirement. Maybe there's some, you know, private ones that you can go into. Would you recommend that you do that like right from the get-go, like that, as soon as you start working, KHUSHPREET?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think the biggest benefit, especially if you're doing the private plans, is because you're younger and you're, usually healthier, you'll meet kind of all their requirements. The premiums will usually be a lot lower than if you were to go later on. And it's funny now, I don't know if this is kind of with everyone in our community, but I know it's definitely with my mom and her friends, they have the stigma around, why are you talking about death? Why are you talking about old age, right? So I remember when I told my mom, like, oh, I'm going to get this life insurance plan. She's like, you're so young. Like, why are you doing it right now? But, you have to kind of think more realistically and, think of the benefits rather than, oh, you're thinking about getting older, you're thinking about death.
Absolutely agreed with you. And at the end of the day, let's just make life easier for ourselves. If we can do things in smaller installments for a longer period of time, that stress level is alleviated as well, rather than trying to figure it all out later on in life. KHUSHPREET, what a pleasure you are. There's so much more I feel we need to talk about. So we definitely need to have you come on. But before I let you go, I want to ask you, is there anything that I haven't touched upon that you'd like everyone out there to know? Whether it be about accounting, whether it be about coming on board with ALOE.
The only thing I can really think of at this point is just making sure that you pick the right accountant for your business and for yourself. Now, of course, there are a lot of accounting firms, but you do want someone that you actually enjoy working with, someone that you trust, which is really important. I know, for example, there's kind of always this comparison, what's the difference between an accountant, a professional, and just a bookkeeper? They charge so much less, but I think a lot of people forget that since you're a CPA or part of a professional body, there's a lot more like onus and a lot more responsibility that you have to make sure that you're, keeping on board. And there's always that kind of added security when you're going to CPA that, they're going to go by the books and they're going to make sure that everything's done correctly.
And then you don't have to worry about it. That's why you hire the pros, right?
Yeah. And then you don't have to worry about it. You're right.
Absolutely. Tell everyone how to get a hold of you again, KHUSHPREET.
Yeah, for sure. So you can always give me a call at 647-631-9700. You can also contact me via my website, which is aloeaccountingandtax.com. And then, of course, you can send me an email at ksran@aloecpa.com.
Absolutely. And don't forget, guys, there's that 30-minute free consultation that is being offered up by KHUSHPREET at ALOE. There is also a form on the website where you can actually ask for a free estimate. There's resources there on the website as well. I really do highly recommend that you go check out this incredible female founder from our community. KHUSHPREET, what a pleasure. You have been absolutely informative, made accounting easy, which is the hardest part, because oftentimes when you speak with an accountant, they speak accounting language, but you just did an entire episode of Anoki Uncensored speaking to me in just regular layman terms. I feel comfortable speaking to you, being someone that is very low on the IQ when it comes to the world of accounting. So thank you so much for making me feel, like I'm not dumb, because this is the other this is the other thing that we have, right? I don't want to really ask the question because I know that they're going to answer and they're going to use all this like jargon. I'm not going to know what they're talking about and I'm going to feel silly asking. And that's another thing that's really important about when you pick an accountant. Make sure that they're meeting you where you're at in your accounting IQ. Fundamental, important thing. KHUSHPREET, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, sharing insights on things that people need to know about accounting and the importance of, financial planning, which even though we just touched upon that part, just, a very small amount. But the fact that you're starting this incredible firm, I think it's going to be, I kind of feel like it's like the new wave of, accounting service. That this idea behind being approachable,
Yeah.
speaking everyday language. And this is something I've struggled with a lot. I've gone through so many accountants because I literally don't understand what they're talking about, because, you know, they feel that I should have a certain degree of understanding, but I don't. I'm a business owner. I'm not an accountant, but you make it so easy. So I absolutely recommend everyone go out, at least go fill out that form on the website to get a cost estimate. Go have a conversation about your business with KHUSHPREET and take advantage of that 30-minute free consultation, because I don't know how long that will even be something that you can do, but it is available now. Thank you for being on KHUSHPREET.
All right, thank you so much, Raj. It was honestly a pleasure reconnecting with you, speaking to you, and honestly, I'm so happy that we did connect earlier.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Guys, I encourage everyone to solicit the expertise of an accountant firm like ALOE, who, by the way, are, as we mentioned, accepting new business at the moment and have a free estimate form you can fill out on the website. So you've got nothing to lose. Go to aloeaccountingandtax.com, where there's also many other resources that you can tap into. Thanks again, KHUSHPREET. I'd love to have you come back on, and I'll see all of you on another episode of the Anoki Uncensored Show. So stay connected with us in between all of that. We've got loads of free content that we put out there. You guys already know what that is, where we are. Our free AnokiLife.com magazine blog, our free weekly newsletter, and of course, all of our socials. Until next episode, have a fabulous day.